Testing, this is a Conservation Commission meeting. Hi, can you hear us now?
Are we good?
Okay, great. I'm glad you're able to hear us now. Okay. Mendon Conservation Commission, May 8th, 2025. All right, so let me walk through a number of the possibilities and then people can say whether they agree with them or not. The first one and the most expensive one that DEP says we might be consider doing is to require the applicant to come up with the plan to remove the existing sand that's there and then do wildlife habitat surveys and things. Is there any interest in going that route as opposed to letting the existing stand stay where it is?
It's been there for many, many years, like
Yeah.
Okay,
Sales.
so
less disruption.
okay, so we do not feel it's necessary to remove existing sand, and that's a policy that we would have for other sites, for other houses on the lake as well. We are not going to go around and start making people pull out.
Okay.
Yeah, that'll cause more damage.
Okay, well, it may or may not cause more damage, but it would definitely be a financial hardship.
Well, it would cause erosion into the lake, which is
Yep.
bad for the oxygen levels. and
Okay,
fish, so-
Well, maybe they should stop letting septics run into it. That's a different
That's
story.
true.
okay.
I say that.
There's also, their second paragraph talks about a FEMA floodplain. Isabella, can you explain what this comment is about?
The floodplain is likely up to date, and so depends on floodplain.
Okay, so that's another thing. Yeah, if we have a giant flood, the sand might move around in the water, but
You
It
know,
also might make some upstream and downstream,
oh,
because you're not having the ability to flood upland. Which is why sand can be problematic.
okay, so if there was a big flood and a lot of sand went down to the southern part of the lake and through the outlet where the beaver dams are, that might cause a problem. Is that what that
The
possible?
lake has a flood zone. All the properties have a flood zone,
Okay,
so the lake rises. If it doesn't have room to rise, it might rise adjacent trees,
okay,
is what that comment, I mean,
okay.
that's why you have flood capacity.
Okay, going on to staff comments. Your initial request was for a yearly refresh of sand and permitting the dock. And the feeling I'm getting is that we would not be interested in having a yearly refresh of the sand, and instead we would just have the dock permit.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe that was a typo. It was yearly for the dock. And
Okay.
then the beach sand was, I was leaving it up to the board.
Okay, so that's,
a condition you would like to make on.
Okay.
timeline. Flexible on that, because I would not want to do the sand every year.
Right, okay,
personally.
so we're in
a couple of
agreement.
years or whatever board suggests, I'm
Right.
in favor of.
So over the next couple of months, I'm hoping that we're able to work on a policy for all sites on the Great Pond for what to do with sand in the future. Okay, so the OOC that we issue would allow you to permit the dock, which would allow you to do what you want. Next one is having conditions for anchoring and securing the dock in the winter, which I expect would be, you're going to continue doing what's been happening in the past.
Yes, so I in the past, what I do is I remove the dock completely
Yep.
out of the water.
Yeah, we saw.
It stacks, it stacks up and gets covered with a tarp.
So Isabella, do you have something like that written up, or would you work that out with?
I haven't dropped it. So
Okay.
it'll be based off your decision.
Okay, so it makes sense that we have something in there about anchoring and securing docks, and also nameplate and information. A week or two ago, someone posted on Facebook, "Hey, this dock showed up in my, whose is it?" And someone claimed it. So yes, it's definitely something we want to work with on the association and all dock owners to have something saying whose it is. so that you don't have to post on Facebook to find out who it is.
Salvage rights in the ocean.
This one doesn't, just so you know, the dock that I have, it doesn't float at all.
Yeah.
So it would, I mean,
Clunk.
it would, yeah, it would sink right to, you know, if the water was to rise 10 feet higher than it would, my dock would just be at the bottom of the lake. It wouldn't be able to float off and be its own boat. So,
We're not authorizing beach sand, so we don't need to do any information about providing information for that. And so those 2 points are not going. We've decided we're not going to require beach sand to be removed. And we're not going to require a restoration of pulling it out and restoring the, after you take the sand out, you have where the muck used to be. We're not going to ask you to fill it in because we're not asking you to take the sand out.
Mr. Chair, if I could ask a question?
Yep.
Because to me, I'm thinking the most important resource is the bank, right?
Mhm.
I'm not having a good memory of the site, but my sense is there's not much of a bank there, right? So,
There's a drop of about like this much.
okay, so this says, it says, what have we got? The bank flags were at the mean annual, which high water, which is the break from grass to sand. So you're saying it goes to sand, then it goes up 6 inches or
Yep.
so?
And then
and
grass.
it's grass.
Yep. That's what I,
So where did you want to enhance the sand? Below the grass? Or above the grass on a nice area where you can, because I'm not sure how wide the beach is there, right? It's not very wide.
the beach was underwater.
Right. So where's the beach that you'd want to expand? Because
But we're not doing that.
we're not doing that, so, yeah, okay.
no, I wouldn't be expanding it.
No,
This
let's go
would be
ahead.
any different than.
Bank is flagged at these circles.
That's what I was just gonna say, those black circles, kind of with the, where it transitions from the tan to the white, the bankment is along there is where Goddard put their stakes. And then the shoreline is the kind of angled red, the angled blue line, which is much further down. So I think it's about 20 feet at the high part of the triangle, and then it goes kind of to 0 at the low part there.
Okay, so you're going from your first deck goes right up to the bank. And then, so what are you going to step off of after you step off that first deck? Are you stepping on the grass? Are you stepping on sand? Are you going?
Yeah, so
Grass.
you kind of step from the grass to that first section of dock, like the first section of dock kind of, most of the time is actually completely out of the water, actually just sitting on sand. Yeah.
So we getting there, Mr. Chair?
Yeah, that's a historical picture when the water level was lower than it is now. When we went out on site, the water level was high and the sand area was completely underwater. And
The sand, water is at the rock.
Yeah, so that's what I would call the, where it changes color. That's.
I was just gonna say.
Bank was flagged. Bank got flagged here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Oh,
right.
really?
Yeah. Yeah, that's where the bank is.
As opposed to the high tide line, it's
Meaning of that water.
high water line. Which is where the color changes, kind of, right? That's.
Okay,
Mhm.
so to summarize, the order of conditions that Isabella will be drafting will be to approve a dock and not approve any sand doing anything, either adding or removing sand.
Your permit was there.
Yes.
Yeah, you can scrape around what's there, right?
What's there, yeah.
Okay, so after some research that Isabella did the past couple of weeks, we need to do 2 motions from now on. First, close the hearing, and then second, to decide what to do now that we close the hearing. So someone make those 2 motions, please.
I move to close the public hearing for 35 Taft Ave, DEP number 218-0864.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion on closing the hearing? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Okay, now, second motion on what to do.
And you
The
wrote
one at the
a,
bottom of page 3.
Well, I suggest that we move to approve the NOI.
But that's just for the,
For the dock.
And the beach that's there.
Right,
right,
as drafted by me.
but no beach nourishment.
Right. So yeah, it just says, and issue an order conditions as drafted by the agent.
Do you want to say?
You just did. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Passes unanimously. Yay. So we've done some procedural cleanups on how we vote, and now we're setting a precedent for future dock and beach permitting for private homeowners on the lake. Thanks for coming in.
Yes, no, thank you. And that's just, like before, it's just an order of conditions. I just picked that up later.
Isabella will, she'll work with you on making sure, which is what you think we said and what she thinks we said, and she'll sign it, or we'll sign it at a future meeting, or
Who's
you have
responsible
something
for,
for us to sign now. Okay.
Who's responsible for recording it?
No, like I said, I can.
It should be.
So you can now, that's my special high school pen.
Your high school?
Yep.
You can have my son if you don't want.
I don't want to remember
Okay,
high school.
next up, notice of intent for
Thanks,
42,
Greg.
Thank you.
Thank you.
42 Millville Street, DEP 218 dash, yeah, shoot. This has already been continued, so we'll skip over this and go on to the next item. Request for determination of applicability, 133 North Avenue, MEN 25-001. Council and applicant's council have jointly requested that this be continued to June 12th. Discussion on allowing that.
Are they talking, they're communicating, or they're in progress? Is that?
What we've heard from town council is that because of the two lawyers' busy schedules between town meeting and other stuff, they have scheduled a meeting for later in May. And so that way they would have time to haggle and come back and with something in writing for our June 12th
No,
meeting.
they're not negotiating, they're making, Karis will make a recommendation to this board.
Okay.
Not be anything in writing of an agreement.
Okay.
Lawyers behind that commission is still voting on the
Yep.
application.
Okay, yep.
But she's negotiating or something, figuring out what the hot spots are, what.
The goal is
There
that
was people working on it.
the
She
goal,
can make a recommendation to the commission.
the goal is that we issue a order of condition, or make the decision that will not be appealed. And so she is able to negotiate with the other party on what their right and red lines are. And I've made clear that our right and red line is that we have already received requests from other farmers to do work similar to how work was done in this parcel of land. We are not going to allow someone to retroactively come in and ask forgiveness when we're saying to other farmers they can't do something.
I'm just a little, not concerned, it's just been so long. It's like, kick the can down. So it's our lawyer, and so it is what it is.
But it's
That's
not
right.
so much the agricultural stuff, it's the fact that they did a lot of other things.
Well, one of the
Yeah,
items for
parking.
discussion is appropriate permitting and whether they have done agricultural work in areas that other farmers have requested to do, told other farmers they can't.
Because I imagine there would be a jurisdictional discussion as to whether it's a man-made ditch or a wetland beginning right at the pipe.
Right, but
That
there's,
is,
In which case that wall is in the buffer, right?
that is something, that is a matter of fact that the commission would have to make a decision on, and if they don't like our decision, they appeal. So the whole reason for the lawyers to negotiate is so that we get a recommendation, so that we don't have that kind of complication and expense. So, can I have a motion?
Motion to continue the public hearing for 133 North Ave to June 12th.
Second.
And moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I do the quote?
Oh, you're right. You're
Continuing?
recusing, yes. Okay, passes with one recusal unanimously. All right, next up, 31 Northbridge Street Enforcement Order, Wetland Resource Area Impact Plan. Fired by our enforcement order of February 13th, 2025. This big thing.
Okay, thank you.
Develop, is this online? Are you able to bring it up for video?
I don't know if, Brian is the representative, if they were gonna share or if they want me to.
Is he available?
They'll just pop them.
Okay, they'll share. Start talking too, I hope. No, we cannot hear you at the moment.
Last one.
Can't run the Wi-Fi here today. It might be my door player. Sure. Oh, yeah, it's your VPN.
Can you try speaking again?
Peter, get them fixed.
Machine.
That committee? Any recommendations?
Call one, call.
And tell them not, tell them not, then there might be a.
Any Collins? There's always an emergency.
It's working, it's working, it's working, it's working, it's working. It's picking up my computer, so let's see if I can.
He said, he sent a text message.
In the chat.
I just wonder if he could call.
Can you hear me now? I think so, right?
Yes.
Okay. So let me try to, I'm gonna try to share the plan if I can.
Yes, please.
Wow. Yeah, for some reason, it's not allowing me to even share the plan. This is crazy. Okay.
I'll-
Because I do have the plan up on my screen, and and I can't get to, I'm hitting share and it says, click a tab to share, but that's usually not how it happens, but,
If you click one of the tabs, it doesn't work.
no. So, cause I'm at the Conservation Commission meeting and I hit the share button next to the leave button and it just says pick on a tab, choose what you want to share. Okay.
You
So
should be
when I
able
do
to
that,
share, you should be able to share your screen or your window.
yeah, it's not even letting me. In fact, my camera doesn't even, when I click on a camera, it won't even let me, Isabella. The only thing that I can do is turn my mic on and off. So, all right.
Well, we
So
have a
if you
plan in
don't
front
have,
of us.
I'll share it.
okay, you're gonna share it, Isabella? Thank you. Well, there we go. Now I can see my plan. Okay, we ready to start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission, Brian Dunn with NBL Land Development and Permitting. I'm the principal of the firm with offices at 5 Bristol Drive in Southeastern on behalf of the property owner, Jeff, and I think he's sitting at the table in front of you. So what we have in front of us is a very, very detailed survey of the property at 31 North Bridge Street, as we were engaged by Jeff to do the survey to delineate the wetlands. We had Brad Holmes delineate the wetlands from ECR. His office is in Plymouth, Massachusetts. He's a very good wetland delineator. And we delineated the wetlands. We also located all of the existing site features that you see on the plan in front of you. Also, with regards to the gravel path that, comes from the left of the existing house, by the shed and through to the back of the site. And it actually kind of ends in the area of Jeff's property towards his lot on Forest Park Drive. So I guess there was some concerns about, working without a permit and so on and so forth. Was my understanding that, this path was pretty much there for a very, very long time. Most, if not all, of the drainage crossings were already there, and that Jeff was doing a maintenance activity in regards to some of the broken pipes and some of the path that was there. And he did add some decorative, stone walls, and did a lot of, plantings along the path and so on and so forth. The intent of the path and the reason why he bought the property, as far as, his mother to be able to, get some exercise, as walking on Northbridge Street is probably not advisable. So the intent was to have a private path from the existing house and to use that path. So we did have an on-site with Isabella and the chairman, and we did discuss about different areas that were altered, and we put those on the plan. It's about 616 plus or minus square feet. We've shaded it in purple. It was in the wetlands around, I think it's flag B32, B31, 30, somewhere around there. You can see it in purple. We did locate the intermittent streams through the site. Brad did confirm that they were intermittent, they were not perennial. We are in a flood, part of the property is in a flood zone X, which is a 0.2% chance of annual flooding, which is very, very minimal. And I think that, what we've shown on the plan and also some of the areas of disturbance, we wanted to talk to you and the other members of the commission in regards to, how to proceed with this. And I think that, probably, scattering the existing bark mulch that's piled up around the first area of the crossing, I think it's flag B 36, somewhere around there, was probably advisable. And then maybe we want to discuss, removing the area of that 600 and something square feet of disturbance. So we're here to discuss, the next steps. I think that the plan speaks for itself. It's very, very detailed. As you can see, it also has all the buffer zones on it, the 25, 50, 100, so that it's, very clear of where the wetlands are versus the existing path. So I'm here to answer your questions and discuss the next steps, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Go, Isabella, you're
Yeah, I'm curious to hear Isabella's comments.
on,
Are you saying the only disturbance was this purple area of 616 square feet?
Yeah, that's through the chair, Mr. Chairman. So that purple area was the area that we identified on the plan. There are some other, like I said before, the piles of bark mulch and in around, I think it was flag C4 and in between C4 and B56 towards the front of the lot. So the rest of the path was, and the culverts and the pipes that were there were being really maintained by Jeff, so that his mother could continue to walk back and forth.
what about the concrete or the stone things that have, where the planters would have been? Is that the one down by flag B1 or the one, is that the marks that are up by?
It's very hard to use.
Some of those other planters are fairly new, and Jeff can talk about exactly when they were installed. But the crossings themselves were there before the pipes were caved in, and so he was working on the intent that this was a maintenance activity, and he was just replacing what was there to keep the hydraulic connection that was there always, or not always, but within the last 20 to 30 years.
Okay,
Do we have aerials of those are claim that these trails of our road has already been there, whatnot? I haven't seen the site.
when he's talking about the dirt path, you talking about the road that's there?
He calls it a dirt patch.
Yes.
They're historical aerials saying that it's always been there. Yeah, look inside.
I just pulled the aerials up.
I looked at
Oh, cool.
1938 and 1985.
Okay. I just can't.
If it was a dirt path, it could have been at one point, but I'm sorry, there was a lot of fill and stuff that were brought in. You can drive a Hummer down that. That's a good road. It's wide.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I'm not as concerned about the dirt path on the south side. I understand. What I'm concerned about are all the three crossings of the intermittent streams. Looks like two have major culverts, right? So,
Yes. And
So what purpose was there to?
I
Whether,
think there's a difference between maintenance and what I saw when I was there.
I'm not answering that question. I would be very interested as to when work got done. My more specific concern is not so much with the path, as I'm saying, along the long one. It's the three side chutes that I guess allows your mother to take a tour walking through the wetlands. But maybe because there's a path, so it's at those crossings at 21, at where the disturbance is. And then my question is area of disturbance. Well, what was the disturbance? Was it digging out or was it filling? What was the disturbance consisting of?
well,
To me, it does not appear, and there may have been pipes in some of the streams and it looks like a footbridge. But here's the aerial image in 2020. Ownership part of the parcel is 2018. And then you get the following, so March 2021. I still don't see
I don't see a path
a,
there.
a road. And the stream crossings in the same way that they are today. Again, it's still, here's where you start to see a much larger crossing. And then if you jump to 2025 aerial imagery, we're looking at that. So I can't say that this is maintenance.
That's a major difference in those sidewalks.
Yeah, I built those in December.
They're really nice.
Trying to just make it.
There's a picture in my head.
Is that,
And then this is the planter area,
What,
which is inside the wetland line.
okay. In an alternate universe where you had submitted paperwork that you wanted to do trail improvement, what are the performance standards that we would have been requiring for culverts and saying how wide the path could be and narrow? What would you have done under those circumstances?
A stream crossing in the Wetland Protection Act is permittable if you are accessing an upland single-family house or, you know, some other performance standards, but you'd be looking at fill for BBW and fill of bank, alteration of bank, which have square footage requirements. So in my opinion, this isn't permittable.
And you, if it's for road, for access, you need X amount wide. If it's just for someone to walk, a footbridge is sufficient and you don't need to have a crossing with sidewalls and culverts.
Peter, when I was there, I remember maybe a 20-yard mile of fill sitting there. And that was after the road was built.
It's on the,
So,
it's on.
I mean, eight stream crossings, the culverts, you know, you need to prove that they're appropriately sized for the amount of water.
Yeah.
Right. That's what you hire engineers. You know, we don't have any documentation of this.
when we were there, the streams were running too, and that was in the middle of it.
Yeah, when we were there at the onsite, the streams were, you know, the intermittent streams were flowing. The other thing that we have is that what Isabel is talking about is the stream crossing standards. They're really for navigable waters and also for waters that have, you know, fish and, you know, that kind of movement through them. And we also have the issue of, I think it's 1.25 feet of clearance per how wide the bank is. So in a lot of these areas, we don't have a lot of bank to, you know, to determine that that distance. So the stream crossings would really apply, and the performance standards would really apply to something that's navigable. And these intermittent streams are definitely not navigable. Or do they really send, you know, fish through?
You're saying there's no wildlife,
Turtles.
required
I didn't
analysis?
I didn't say that. I said the stream crossing is normally for, you know, migrants of fish and also for navigable use, like a canoe or a little dinghy, that kind of a thing. And when you don't have bank and you don't have a distance from bank to bank, there's no way to calculate the height and the width of that crossing, because that's how the stream crossing standards are applied.
Say it would have to meet stream crossing standards, and when we spoke with Brad, the professional wetland scientist on site, he did talk about bank alteration.
I have a question.
Yep.
Who is calling it an intermittent stream because the Mass Mapper shows it as being an ultra. No, print on this, yes. The geologist said use my.
Yes, is it a solid line or?
It is a dashed line, so intermittent or not, but I would not say that this intermittent stream doesn't have bank.
This one?
Yeah.
Already
Looks to me
selected.
like there's a bank right there.
Double check. I already selected all that.
Can you
It's
come up
solid, it's a solid line here, so. I'll look at the USGS.
In terms of the enforcement order, the first request was to have this wetland flagging done for us. What's the
And a
next step?
square footage calculation of altered PVW and bank.
Okay, and you're saying the only alteration is the purple area up by, up in the top?
Yeah, and then we also, Mr. Chairman, we also discussed the piles of bark mulch, the chips that are piled towards the front of the, the first set of wetlands areas. You can see that in the contours of, it looks like piles, the small
Okay,
little piles of and then they're labeled like that on the plan as well.
Okay, so I read something that points to the purple area and says area of disturbance 616 square feet. Do you have
Yes.
other things on the document where you're saying how much the alteration was or disturbance was?
I did not quantify the dirt and mulch pile because we were discussing that during the onsite that would possibly just be scattered in that area. So I could quantify that. There's probably, maybe another, I don't know, maybe another 500 to 600 square feet of piles of bark mulch and mixed dirt towards wetland flags C6, C7, and B35.
Okay, so I believe that the major difference of opinion now is on the amount of dirt moving that has been done in the past 5 years to widen the path and install culverts. And so I will say, what's the best way to resolve that difference of opinion? Do we get a peer review? Do we go out and do another sidewalk?
I would love to do on the sidewalk and have other members see.
I-
If that would help.
I think we need evidence of the contrary to there being culverts there.
Both would show, goes even further past my house.
Does it show the 15-inch HDPE pipe or a 24-inch pipe?
It's, I'm sure you're talking over my intelligence, maybe Brian knows. I just looked at an aerial photography. Before Forest Park was even put in.
Do you have any photos that you took in the area before you started improving the path?
I went through all my folders. I found one photo that I have from my backyard going over the wall, and you can see a leaf covered path. And I had shared that with Brian, but Brian, I'll let you know, I'll let you chime on whether you thought that was, visually, enough to show that there was a path back there.
Yeah, I mean, those images you showed me they do show a path there. I mean, it's something that's would be something we'd have to dimension and show how wide it was back on those pictures and try to scale them to be appropriate so that we have an idea of what the path width was. So I mean, I think that maybe having another onsite with some of the other commission members to see things so that they can get an understanding of really what this looks like and how that it's really something that needs to be seen to understand. So can we pick a date and a time and get out there and discuss this?
Well, we can't
really deliberate.
We can't do a discussion, we can just observe and make observations. Discussion would have to be at another Concom meeting.
Understood, okay. So when would you like to meet on site again?
Wednesday or Thursday before the next meeting, which would be in 2 weeks. Is that way it'll be fresh in our minds.
Okay, Wednesday or Thursday? What
So-
days are we talking about, please?
The 21st or the 22nd?
Peter, is that, you have the days
20.
available? It could be this evening.
So-
Well,
You're saying Thursday or Friday, the 22nd or the 23rd?
The
Wednesday.
21st or 22nd, with the meeting being May 22nd in the evening.
Wednesday would be better for me.
Oh, so you're saying Wednesday, the 21st?
Yep,
Okay, I can do Wednesday, the 21st, not a problem. What time?
9.
9 a.m.? Okay, 9 a.m. it is.
what day?
Wednesday, the 21st at 9 AM.
I'll do mornings, but yeah.
The specific topic that the commissioners will be interested in observing is evidence that would bolster your claim that the only work that has been done in the past 5 years was minimal improvements that were not going to cause a problem with the performance standards of working within a wetlands area. Or either the wetlands or the 100-foot buffer that Mendon has.
Okay, not a problem. Yep.
Isabella, is that what you would be looking for?
Yeah.
Okay,
Is that dirt road? In the buffer zone, it looks like it is here.
Yes.
so
I'm
in
sorry,
terms of,
I didn't hear what they said.
Is,
I was just asking Isabella if the road was in the buffer zone.
Oh, it's
So-
definitely in the buffer zone.
so in terms of the enforcement order, it had specific timetables. Do we need to update the language of that to accommodate how far along we are in the process?
we still don't have, I mean, we have the site plan, but we don't have a square footage calculation.
Unless their calculation is 616 square feet, because they believe that the chip piles would just be scattered and not be considered disturbance.
Right, so that's kind of like what we discussed on the onsite, Mr. Chairman. So I didn't include them, but if that's something the commission wants me to include, I can easily get that calculation done and send it over tomorrow.
No, we were equally interested in any disturbance that happened during the past couple years' work along the dirt path. And you're making a claim that there was no disturbance, and that's what we will be looking at specifically in 2 weeks.
Okay, so so let's talk about all of this and do the site walk on the 21st.
Well, we'll watch and listen on the 21st, and then we'll have a discussion on it the following night.
Understood.
Thursday.
Understood.
Okay.
Understood.
Okay. So I believe that finishes this item unless commissioners have anything else to say. Okay. So thanks for coming.
Well, thank you.
See you then.
Yeah, sorry about the technical difficulties. Appreciate your help getting me on this.
Yep.
Have a great night, everybody. Thank you.
Yeah, good one.
Okay, agenda item number 8, 7 Park Street, 7 Nipmuc Drive. Review placement to fill large boulders in buffer zone to a bordering vegetated wetland.
Is this the one that
She can bring it up on the map, and then she will talk about what the initial report was, how she's worked with the planning board, how I went to the planning board meeting and they said Isabella and Dylan are taking care of it. So,
Sorry.
Well, so I got a call that 7 Nipmuc was filling.
can you bring
the
it up
property.
on Mass GIS?
Well, so it's not associated with Benny Pickton's project of 7 Nipmuc. So that's separate. This is 7 Park Street. There's quite a lot of large boulders.
Yes, and is that also?
That's the old Route 16 highway.
Right. where they
Well,
are
it's behind.
using the above land on Route 16 for
Right.
moving industrial stuff and it's sitting there.
Yeah.
And then there's the wetland behind it, so that's hope is.
So we're looking at this whole. Old highway has been filled with rock within the buffer zone.
So is this, so it's Court Woods, right? That's
Yeah.
where the area is being worked?
No, the neighboring property lot 2 is
Okay.
Pinch Hill,
That's my
where
calendar.
the work is happening, but they're stockpiling on.
So my concern is,
My purse is gone.
all right, there's a wetland, there's a 100-foot buffer. So is any work being done in here?
No. I was out with their,
So
I was out with an engineer for Pincho, and it measures, the stockpile measures to 123 feet. But they, they had to get their erosion controls up.
So who owns the old road?
So Quirk owns,
It went both sides?
Quirk owns all of it. There was 81P, Quirk now owns this whole entrance. Pinto owned to the 25-foot. But they just subdivided it. Quirk owns all of it.
So we were interested in the fact that there was a stockpile with no erosion control. We told them, they said, oops, and put in erosion control now.
Put erosion controls and they have to amend their planning board permit because they're outside of the approved limit.
Right, so this,
But if they're still outside of our buffer zone, we
Yeah.
don't have jurisdiction.
as long
But we have jurisdiction over this.
Yep.
However, it's on a paved road. But it is in the 25-foot no disturb. So James Quirk does intend to submit an NOI, and the NOI is gonna be for a retaining wall. But that'll be in the upcoming months, but so there is, this work was placed here without a permit, is in violation of the 25 no disturb.
So what do we do?
well, same thing that we've started doing. Other times people do things within the 100-foot buffer. We issue, write up an enforcement order with some dates in it.
Okay.
Yes, well, sometimes you do that.
And I'm trying to get it
So
trend out.
they are coming with an NOI in the next month or 2 or 3.
Okay, so I would give them until, I think September 1st is reasonable. So what do other people think about waiting that long?
For what, you know,
The rocks aren't going anywhere. They're not going to move. They're not going to cause any further disturbance to the wetlands, especially if they're on pavement.
but my concern is the steep slope, so it doesn't look like it's moving.
Yeah, it's not exposed. It's a very steep slope.
So I'm suggesting September 1st or whatever our meeting is.
So you're looking for a motion for a.
Can you look up the first meeting in September? Because that's when we would have it. Actually, no, September 1st is a good time for them to get a document to us. So leave it at
As
September.
an expectation or enforcement?
The enforcement order would say that we have noticed you've done something with, you've done something there and we want an NOI by September 1st.
I'll make that motion.
What about the fill?
I don't think so.
That's what the NOI would tell us what they're doing.
I want to issue an
I mean,
enforcement order requiring notice of intent to be submitted by September 1st.
And it sounded like they may change the pile of rocks into a retaining wall on there. And then we would vote on that.
Sure.
That would be your NOI.
Right. So the purpose of the enforcement order is to just not let them wait another 12 months before coming back with the NOI, which has happened in a couple other places. And we're now
I agree.
starting to, I no longer want to be in the position of Isabella saying, well, you didn't issue an EO, so
Can't we just make that part of what we do?
make what part of what we do?
EO is part of what we do.
Sure can. I just made a motion.
Yes, so-
Like, can't we just have a step-by-step process that we follow every time something comes to us?
Each one is different, so this is, I've made a motion for enforcement order, someone has to second it.
Is this are we supposed to second?
The motion is to
Oh.
issue.
Second.
Okay, so we have it moved and seconded to issue an enforcement order requiring that they submit an NOI by September 1st for review at our first meeting in September. Any further discussion? Okay, and we will now wait. So all in favor?
Ah,
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes unanimously. So we will now wait for them to come back with an NOI and go through the whole process where they work with Isabella over the summer and making sure that they have everything in their NOI that they need to. Okay. Staff. 2 Nitmuck Drive, DEP number 218-0837. Review activity that has occurred outside the limit of work with the permit. That's the update on this one.
There is no update.
Okay,
They're going to come back with the plan as to how they want to figure it.
They're gonna come back with an NOI,
With the what?
with an NOI,
Mike Dean.
open-ended.
So do we want to amend the EOI and give them a date as well?
There is no EO.
Oh, okay, so again, do we,
yeah, we're waiting. You've been waiting.
Well, you didn't issue one when Mike came here, so I would do one now.
okay.
Maybe we should.
Maybe we can't go back to the past, so.
Because then it covers us.
Okay, well, something to communicate with Mike is now starting to wave EOs around and we'll want an update on him and what his policy is. I have been hearing from site engineers all over that they're swamped with work. And so that's why it's taking a long time for people to generate paperwork for us. Okay, updates, chair. My plan is to not be chair next year, so it's time for someone else to move on. It will help. If there's a lot of,
Yeah.
starting in June
This
1st,
June?
July 1st.
July 1st, sorry.
Yes. 2026?
No, what would happen is there are two people up whose terms expire, who will either get renewed or the select board will appoint other people to fill it. After that has been complete and we have our new member organization, at which point I will not be accepting a nomination to be chair next year. So someone else will need to be chair. No, I will go back to either being vice chair or just a regular board member.
Say, what do we do?
But the point is
Oh,
that
thanks.
Can you be the adjunct chair?
no, I'm not going to be co-chair. It's not the way things work.
Share.
The expectation is that the new chair would be able to work with Isabella and you'll work out that working relationship the same way that Isabella and I have been working for the past year or so, year and a half. This, job one of a manager is employee retention. Job two is
Chair, Laura.
job number two of a manager is to make sure they train their replacement. So it's now time to have someone step up and be a replacement. So this gives you a chance to think about, you're willing to be chair between July 1st and July 1st of the following year.
When you say more, you meaning all of us.
Yeah.
The other 6 people, minus whoever is leaving the board, whoever comes in, although I wouldn't recommend having someone coming in be the chair.
Although you never really recommend somebody really good that comes in.
The duties of the chair are, the most obvious one is the public facing one of running the meeting. And we've had other people running meetings. The other one is that in the periods between meetings, you coordinate with Isabella for things that come up, like hey, we just got a report that XXXXX. Will it wait till the next meeting? Okay, it won't. What do we do now? And then you and Isabella would communicate and decide what to do in terms of, does she speak with the property owner? Do we issue an emergency EO that is then approved by the full commission at the next meeting? And that's the kind of decision-making I want to step back from, so that someone else is now going to be getting the experience of working with Isabella on the more emergency situations.
How many hours per week is your time commitment outside of the meetings? What's to do all that work?
Well, it depends on, norm,
I know
what I typically do is I would be meeting with Isabella either on Zoom or by phone or coming to the office for about an hour before the Thursday meetings to just prepare for the agenda and make sure that I have a good idea of what's going on. I wasn't able to do that this week, which is why I was making some missteps on it. The rest,
Minimum a chair has to do is approve the agenda.
Yeah.
And run the
And
meeting.
this is all volunteer.
Yeah.
Like,
yes,
It's run the meeting.
Right.
the rest of it is to work with Isabella on emerging situations that happen and give her direction and guidance as to how strict to be or whether to haul people in and things like that. So that's
Well,
my,
why are you telling us this now?
Well, thank you for your good work.
and I will still be here. It's just that I will be sitting
Can you just
over
be
here.
the silent ninja? The silent, but then-
Just kick somebody if they screw something
Yeah.
up.
Well, like you saw me doing that with Bob and Susan when they've been running meetings. Okay, so that's
I
the,
think it's more than that though, by the way. I'm just saying.
that's the chair update. Well, yeah, I also, the other thing the chair can do is they steer the direction by
Right.
suggesting motions.
Yeah.
Although,
But you have to have the know-how to do that.
right, one of the reasons that everybody liked having
Falling
me,
down.
one of the reasons everybody liked having me as chair, and Peter can talk to this, is that for about a year and a half, 2 years before they forced me to become chair, I was the person making the motions. So I may end up doing that anyway. Now Isabella is in effect making the motions. But even now you can hear me talking with applicants to say, okay, is this what you want? This what you want? There's sort of an advantage in me not doing that as chair, because the chair would then be, it's supposed to be impartial instead of me trying to direct things.
No.
So I'm not going to shut up at meetings. I will just not be the acting chair. So
What are we
that's,
gonna do about members that don't show up for a long time and then they don't,
Their
and they
term
don't,
ends in June and we find somebody else.
and then they don't even have the courtesy to take screens.
Your appointment letters say that you should not miss 4 in a row. So the board could bring it to the select board,
Started.
you as 4 members. And I would say 1 member is now missed 6 in a row.
Yeah. Yeah. At least have the
Is it-
courtesy if you can't make it.
Is it worth doing that or just to be? Since their term may be up in June.
Well,
So I
you
don't
don't
know.
want a blanket reapproval. If. But that's,
So what's the process then? Do we just write a letter to the select board?
I
So-
could write a letter on behalf of the commission, or each of you could go to Jeremy, town administrator.
well, who are the, can you bring up the town website or do you know who the?
Tim and Peter are.
Okay. So,
And typically the executive assistant to the select board asks if people want to be reappointed.
Okay.
And then if they had a new person seeking, they would compare people who want to be reappointed and new people and I don't know.
Well, that being
Typically-
said, do we have a list of people who might want applicants, or has anyone submitted a
We
request?
have someone who is maybe submitting a letter.
the other thing that we can do is we can request that the select board open a 45-day period where they publicly advertise that they are looking for people to join a particular commission.
I'd be all for that. Just get a little publicity.
So what might happen then is if there are 3 people who are interested from the community, then they would be thrown in the same bucket as you and Tim, and the 5 of you would then go through an interview process, and then the select board would make the final determination. So Peter, what do you think you'd bring to the?
Uh, I'm just a little concerned about attendance. And so whose job is to check? So, because it's selecting not coming. That's-
I track attendance.
You track it, but then who do you, it's, who, it's really the selectmen who made the decision, right? So that information should be given to them. They can do with it what they want.
I would like to make sure or give ourselves the best chance of not having a member who doesn't show up. It's not fair to the rest of us, because we're here every meeting and we do the work, you know? And then they just come in and
Can you phrase that as a motion directing Isabella to do something?
This is under updates though, not an agenda topic, so I'd
Oh.
be careful of how much discussion.
I guess I'm of the belief that fresh blood is also a good thing. And so the suggestion that the selectmen advertise is a no-brainer to me. Why not?
Oh, I think it's a great idea.
there might be a candidate.
Yeah, open it. It's not.
Okay, it's not on the agenda, so the board will not take a vote on officially. However, members are free to communicate through the appropriate town staff of what their wishes are for the select.
And I can relay attendance sheet.
Please do.
Simple.
If I were going to write an email, it would be Jeremy, not Elena.
You would do
Both.
Jeremy, Katie, who's the select board assistant,
Okay.
and Elena, if you wanted to.
Okay.
We used to have, who was the other selectman? He was our dedicated guy.
Jason Cooter is our liaison, so he's also you could emote the 2 of them.
Okay.
Okay, back to conservation agent.
The wetland protection bylaw passed at town meeting.
Nice job.
I would expect we see an accepted attorney general bylaw late summer.
I'm sorry, I missed it. Was there any discussion?
No.
No, that's a good time.
No questions.
I got up and made the motion, and then I said, said, okay, Isabella, take it away. And she got up, looked at the audience, froze for a second, and then basically gave the speech that she'd given to us here during the meeting and during the Zoom session the previous week of how this would be cleaning things up and improving things for us, positioning us.
So
in the right
our
regulation.
strategy is to now take the next few months and maybe figure out how to
Regulate.
further with it or regulations.
Very
and
regulation.
locations.
So I have asked 3 firms for proposals. It seems I'm gonna get one sooner than the others.
Firms, did you say?
Firms, yeah.
And we have a budget for this or?
Yes.
We have the wetland protection fund, which it can only be spent on wetlands.
I'm guessing these are wetland scientists.
Yeah. So I was speaking, if you remember Andrea Kendall, she did the public water supply delineation with LEC Environmental. And I think that they helped draft Bellingham's, so. Yeah, there should be proposals soon, but I think I need 3 if it's gonna be over 5,000.
Here's a summary. For the past 20, 30 years, we've been collecting fees from people submitting papers, and it's been going in a bank account.
For 10 years.
10 years? Okay. It's been going in a bank account that we've never really done anything with because we tried to ignore money as much as possible.
We have the funds.
There is money that we can choose to use on things specifically for the Wetlands Protection Act part of our jurisdiction. We can't take this money and use it for like conservation work or like
And you're
trail.
thinking it's 5,000?
We'll wait until we get there.
I mean, I would anticipate, an initial kickoff meeting with them coming here so they can gauge what the commission wants. And then maybe a draft and
Yeah.
edits following it. It depends on how technical we're gonna get, but my goal would maybe to see regulations for the new year, January 1st.
Okay.
And we take the summer and fall. So I think it would be the amount of time the consultant takes writing them and then the number of meetings they're required to attend.
Good thing we have someone on the Conservation Commission who's not going to be chair, who likes doing paperwork and would be able to work with them. Who likes working on bylaws.
Yeah, sorry, I'm glad you did.
So the
I deal
goal,
with paperwork all day long.
yep, the goal would be to do, things like sliding scale, fees, coming
agree
up
with that.
with, other policies and procedures relating to stuff. We can look at the Bellingham regulations as a template for, and then say, how does that carry over to what we would be interested in?
Needham's got some good ones.
Yep.
I have 2 building permits on hold, one at 32 Blackstone Street and one at 60 North Ave. They both have open wetland permits that required replication and restoration. That doesn't appear to have been completed. So those will probably be future agenda topics.
Have we come to a meeting of the minds with the building inspector on whether reissuing a hold actually means anything?
It means nothing. I can't hold a building permit.
Right. Yep.
But I can try.
Yep. Okay, just wanted to make sure that,
I can't hold a building permit, but I can put it in the software that there has been no Concom approval. You can get your building permit, and if you don't have a Concom permit, the Concom will issue enforcement.
okay,
You can't build without all your permits.
Okay, so you do, but you don't. But you did.
I can't hold the fit, you can have your building permit in hand the same way you can have your Board of Health septic system in hand. You don't have a Concom permit.
So all your ducks aren't in a row, you still can't build.
well, if they went and started moving dirt without a Concom permit, and we took a tape measure and measured 100 feet from a jurisdictional wetland or BVD, we issue an enforcement order and say, stop right there.
Yeah.
So it makes sense for them to come to us ahead of time rather than get the equipment out on.
Yeah, because if, those plans say behind my house, which is, next to the other property, that's all those wetlands out there. So we inquired with the board, or Concom, they said, no, you're outside of everything, but, we'd appreciate if you put down some maybe. Anyways, we did, so. So there's still a little patch back there, so. And lots of woods, lots of bunnies.
Shoot the bunnies.
And then we're been working on the ecological restoration grant for the Providence Street culvert.
Oh, nice.
That's all I have.
Okay, Lake Nipmuc Task Force, Bob isn't here. Things will be heating up when they start meeting again. We will now have something to talk with them about in terms of, we've put a stake in the ground with respect to beach sand. We're going to start looking at everybody else on the lake as they come up for dock permits. And if you don't have a dock permit, you better start doing it, because at some point in the future, we're going to have a police boat out there.
How will are we gonna tell them that at a meeting or something like that, or is Bob gonna deliver that? But do you go to the meetings too, don't you, Isabel?
I'm not on the Lake Nipmuc Task Force, but the task force is separate from Lake Nipmuc Association. The task force is like a municipal.
Okay, so how do we get word to them? Something.
He knows we're here and that this is on our agenda. Bob also attends the Lake Nipmuc Association meetings. So-
You met him in the middle, I feel like.
Yeah, so one of the things we will be asking Bob to bring to the task force is that we want to look ahead several years.
But this board is the enforcing authority, even if
Okay.
the task force is like to talk about how we're gonna maybe reduce septics and like other testing on the lake, not so much what the commission is going to enforce.
Okay.
So, I mean, you can ask for their feedback, but they're not making any rules or regs, it's you.
Okay.
It's probably.
Regulations. I heard the word regulations. Land use?
It's meeting next week. I'm not sure I have anything to report. Just a question though about the hearings. Do we have to have a time certain for all our public hearings, or can we continue to do it as has been our once?
It depends, so. What's proper or what you want to do? I don't know, so
I
that,
want to be efficient, and I don't want to have to wait until 9 o'clock. Because we got 3 hearings scheduled, and we got half an hour, but they only take 10 minutes, and then they get postponed because they take no minutes, and we're sitting
What?
around, and we can't open the hearing until.
what I think maybe makes the most sense is that the public hearings that are advertised for the first time for that date have to start at the advertised time. So if it's 7 o'clock, it starts at 7. If it's 7:30, it starts at 7:30. And then the continued, don't set times for the ones that have been continued. Might
Yeah.
make sense.
Yeah, and maybe just schedule, I don't know, 15 minutes, half an hour. And if it takes more time, okay, the other one's gonna, what do? Do you stop the hearing and then open the other hearing and then go back to the first hearing? Or do you wait until the first one's all
Well,
done?
if it's not resolved in half an hour, you don't have enough information and you continue.
The way other towns do it in cities, they're on a strict timetable. They have a PowerPoint deck saying everything that's going to happen in the meeting. They don't move things around in the agenda. You get your 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Okay, you're all done. The commission either votes or it continues.
Right, and that was the intimation, and to me, that's not the way I would think a small town should run, but that's okay, it's.
Well,
It doesn't explicitly say you have to do timestamps. It says you have to advertise the time of the public hearing, so planning, zoning, Concom, and same in other towns, post all of them for 7 o'clock.
All hearings.
so
That works.
as chair, I'm expecting to continue the existing practice until I'm chair. The new chair can work with Isabella and other town staffers and other town boards to see if town policy changes.
I like the way we do it.
Well, I do too, which is why we've been doing it. I like the fact that I don't have to say, oh, it's not 7:15 yet. We have to sit around for 3 minutes. Tick, 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 tick,
I
tick.
think it actually works to our benefit in the end, because applicants feel like they came here and got to state their case. We feel like we got all the information, and it's gonna avoid appeals and all of that kind of stuff in the future. If we're able to hear everything and not be rushed.
I think the point for the butters and maybe professional engineers is if you have 5 public hearings, you should know, you're on at 8 versus get here at 7 and get paid in a whole hour.
Right.
Or a sacrifice, we had 15 butters who sat through a public hearing when they thought it started at 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other issue I don't want is, all right, I get a notice for the open hearing, the continuation. Right, or it keeps getting put off, right? So I come to a meeting, oh, no, we're not having that today. Well,
That's the
Actually,
agenda
that's-
tells us.
so it's,
I started putting that in the agenda to hopefully, if things get continued prior.
Yeah.
But it's nice to say, like, instead of just continuing it 2 weeks, maybe a month. That's what they all, it's heard for other project.
Okay, any further discussion before we review and approve minutes for April 20th?
But the public hearings, so you do have to vote to close the public hearing, as we did tonight.
Yeah.
The motion. And then you do technically have 21 days to make the decision, so you can close the hearing and say we're not voting until the next meeting, and so commissioners want to review plans or regulations or stormwater for 2 weeks, they can take it home with them. But you wouldn't be able to, the night you're making the decision, you wouldn't be able to have input. You wouldn't be able to discuss really or have input from engineers are, they're not reopening the hearing after you close it.
So you're suggesting that, so that the hearing is just to get information, so you close it here. And then at our next meeting, we can bat it around and discuss and argue.
No, we can't.
So what you just
You might
have
be
a
able
vote
to
with the
dis-
discussion?
You can discuss, I think, just among commissioners, not from applicants.
Right. So we get into arguments, and if I.
Well, it would be you and Mike
Yeah,
arguing.
oh, well, that's right, that's what. Yeah.
Felix,
But you wouldn't be able to.
We wouldn't be able to ask the
Wouldn't have
applicant staff any further questions. Their site management team.
But we can
wouldn't be-
discuss it as a forum.
But we typically have those arguments before we close the hearing, which I think is an easier way to do it. If we had more technical people involved on who wanted to, well, okay, I've heard all your arguments. I'm now going to look at the 60-page stormwater report, and I need until the next meeting to do it. But no one here is that technical. We'd refer it to a peer reviewer and keep the hearing open.
I think when you make the motion and say any discussion, it's if the public hearing's already closed, it's more clear that it's not discussion with anyone else,
Mhm.
just the butter or just the commissioners.
I think. You want a motion to approve the minutes of April?
No, I'm sorry, I don't have minutes.
Okay.
We will pass over that particular item.
We will continue that.
Good and welfare for the commission. Okay, I sounded off about not being chair anymore. Any other issues that you three want to bring up?
Can it just be an issue that I brought up before that I just want to double to check on? It's just the house on Blackstone. Is it 69 or 73 or 75? I can't remember. You were putting in a pool and then they put the wattos down. Well, the wattos are gone now, and maybe they've finished the pool, but it's just a river of mud there, like coming down the slope still, and there's no erosion controls left.
But it's outside the buffer. Was there an order of conditions?
It's not, it's because it runs down the street into the river.
Is there mud on the street now?
Yeah, there's some salted mud.
Okay, then call up the highway department. Say, hey, somebody's making.
He
your
said it's
street-
on his schedule for street sweeping in the next month or so, but that he wasn't concerned when he drove by.
But my point is just that if he can put the wattos back, that would be great.
No problem with that.
That's all they need to do. We're getting a lot of it. Right now, at least.
Guess we're angry with the clouds out there.
That's all.
Anyone have a,
Other welfare item?
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Sorry. So I'm always thinking about beavers, as you guys know. And I think that part of the problem that we have in this town is a residual problem. And that's that you've allowed people to build closer to beaver habitat in a lot of places. So I would think as a commission, one thing we can do to help beavers, because we can't translocate. Trapping is not really humane. Is that when we have properties that are gonna be built near beaver habitat or wetlands that could become beaver habitat, we have to start thinking more about that. And how far and how close.
And doing what?
Making sure that people don't build houses that close to the habitats.
Peter, in all the time you've been on Concom, have we ever told someone, no, you can't do that?
Yeah. I'm wondering.
Beavers don't-
But what you're saying, right now, we have 100-foot buffer, right?
Yeah.
And so if we don't let people build in the buffer, then is that gonna be enough for a beaver to build a big old dam?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily. So now who is going to define where the beaver habitat is? Is it any big stream and then within
Well, they
100 feet and elevation of 5 feet, because they can build a 5 foot? I know your love of beavers, but
But a beaver's not gonna go into the middle of a ball field and build a dam. That's the thing, is that the reason why we're having this issue. And the way we can prevent it is to not build houses where beavers that could be beaver habitat.
right, and beaver habitat is the wetland, so we're protecting the wetlands, and we protect 50-foot no build. That should pick up some of the potential beaver. But now you're saying that, no, there's some that they could flood out the whole. So
I just think it's something we need to keep in mind. And like when we've gone to other properties before that necessarily were allowed to be built, that's a lot of times where problems arise. Like the house on Monterey Street, is it Monterey Street? I don't know, it was like Tudor, and the lady was all upset and she was.
So then that would require us to either have a more strict interpretation of the 200-foot riverfront, because that's mostly where the beavers are going to be doing it, or stronger buffer protections, or protection for intermittent streams to pick up some other potential beaver habitat. So
I'm just
create
saying,
a new land use or a new potential beavers.
Let me ask a more specific question. Has there ever been a case where someone has come in saying they want to build a house on a lot? And we've told them, you're building in the 100-foot buffer zone. So no, you can't do that, which
We've
meant that,
never had
which-
such a strict interpretation.
Right.
of buffers.
so we have never prevented someone from building a house. All we've done is said, no, you have to move the house. You have to move your septic system. That's,
And I tried to make them build a smaller house, but that doesn't usually work.
okay.
Or turn it, or, yes, it's, but no, we have felt that you have a right, if it's a lot that was developed.
If it's a lot that perks. Yeah, and it's likely that if we did make a decision like that, it would get appealed because the homeowner wants to build their house.
Beavers don't have standing yet, sorry. See that?
you can't see the smiling.
Yeah.
Does anyone see that video on TV or not? They have not seen on the what internet? Or somebody, the beaver adoption agency or whatever, they help rehab beavers. This baby beaver is walking around the house, just grabbing whatever it can and started building a dam in the doorway. You guys seen that one? Yes, it's horrible. That's
But you're right, we're going to see more beaver human interactions.
It's not their fault, it's our fault.
They're coming back.
And then we go.
Items not anticipated. Great, we're at the item 14.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded, no discussion, all in favor? Opposed, passes unanimously.
I want to say here.
See you at the sidewalk.
Yes, Peter.
I have to-
Yeah.
Yes.